Weekend.
Good morning. I'll call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We have minutes of December 20th meeting. Any questions, comments, revisions to those? I'll entertain a motion. So moved. Motion made,
Second.
seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carried. The housekeeping resolution, we've got housekeeping to do this morning.
Lisa, do you want to walk us through that?
Sorry.
This is to ensure compliance with the New York State Authority Budget Office. Very important.
Too many of these this week. We need to approve the resolution approving appointments and administrative matters. Yes. On page, I think it's 3. We are going to approve appointments, administrative matters, confirm the policies in the corporation policy manual, authorize the chairman, president, and chief executive to take all steps necessary to implement the matters described in Schedule A. And that is your resolution.
Questions about this? It's just housekeeping. Motion approved. Anyone?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Made a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. The compliance calendar.
It's just, this is not based on a ABO document. It just outlines what you're going to do for the year, what you should be doing for the year, your self-evaluations.
Okay.
And it just goes through what the requirements are till the end of the year. Just an outline.
Questions about the compliance calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mission statement and measurement goals.
This is your proposal basically for 2023. It hasn't changed from 2022. We're putting for performance goals and hopefully you're going to achieve these. So this is new for 2023. It follows the same format as 2022. So it follows that. So we need a motion for that.
Goals, how are these goals developed?
We go according to the mission. So if you look down at the list of performance goals,
Mhm.
we are educating local business owners, elected officials, community representatives. We have public meetings. We're going to continue to market and administer the revolving loan program, including all the documentation. We're going to continue to work with all the municipalities in Columbia County on their projects. Continue to work with all Columbia County organizations and departments to address business issues. Continue marketing ourselves to entrepreneurs and businesses. Continue to improve our office efficiency, and we're going to continue to work with state and federal elected officials to develop business incentive programs.
Thank you. Questions about the 2023 mission statement and compliance goals? I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Committees. Treasurer's report.
Good morning. We gave you the extended version of the treasurer's report this month being year end. We did have a finance committee meeting. And we are working with the auditors at UHY in preparation of our 2022 audit report. We are required to do a single audit because we did review with the accountants the fact that we've received sufficient federal and state monies that would trigger the audit. And it was last year was the first year. Primarily the result of the success of the loan program and the amount of funding that we received both in terms of funds to relend through the SBA loan program, as well as the technical assistance grants that we receive. But this year, because we received through the county 60,000, when I say this year, I mean 2021, I'm sorry, 2022. We received $60,000 in broadband money. We received $150,000 in Columbia Forward money. And that money is from the American Recovery Act pool of funds received by the county. So it's considered a pass-through. The issue is that the single audit adds another $12,000 to $15,000 to our auditing expense. But again, what did your accountant tell you? If you didn't make the money, you wouldn't have to pay the taxes. So I consider it a tax for a not-for-profit when you have the increased audit fees. Our balance sheet is very strong. If you look down at the 6 from the bottom of the on the balance sheet, you'll see that our cash is up $131,000. One of the things that we reviewed with the committee is that we did receive $150,000 from the county for Columbia Forward, along with $50,000 for the Columbia Forward grant program. You'll recall that the grant program allows us to provide a 10% grant to any borrower who qualifies up to $25,000. So if you come in and are qualified for a $25,000 loan and we close the loan, you leave here with $27,500, and you don't only have to pay back $25,000. Because those programs were set up in a way for a full year, but we didn't sign the contract with the county until July, I have put in reserve $38,000 of the grant money, which we didn't spend, and $42,500 of the funding that we received for Columbia Forward, because technically we didn't start the program to July, but the county paid us from January because that's how the original contract was written. Basically, what that will do is that will push the ability to run the program for the full 3 years into the first 2 quarters of 2025. And so, you know, when you look at 80,000 of that 131 is the additional cash over last year that we're holding in reserve. At the same time, I'm happy to report that the CEDC closed on the purchase of the lot on Route 9H that you had approved, that the county had asked us to acquire. We acquired that property for $224,000 plus an environmental report, a survey, and some legal expense. And we used the money that the county had instructed us to retain from previous sales of land in the Commerce Park for county-directed purposes. And in addition, they directed the IDA to transfer to us $88,400, which were the proceeds of the sale of the last parcel in the Commerce Park earlier in 2022, so that we could aggregate the $120,000 we were holding, along with the 88 that they were directing us, that they transferred from the IDA to us to go forward with the sale. The result is there's about a net $20,000 that CEDC used its own money. And our understanding with the county is that they ultimately request that we transfer it to them so that they can build a kitchen facility for purposes of running the Meals on Wheels program and the home health services, which they're also considering putting in this building, that they would, the sale price would be the net that we had expended of our own money to make the sale happen. You'll recall that that the issue was that the seller was in poor health. Unfortunately, he ultimately died 2 weeks after the closing. And so the county had to go through more steps internally for approval to move forward with the purchase of the land and the development of I think it's a $15 million building that would go on that site. So CEDC, as the local development corporation under the statutory authorities that we have, acquired the land for future county purposes with 90% of the funds coming from the county. And we'll get the balance of the funds if the county acquires the land. And if they don't, and we market it to a third party, because it does have water, sewer, gas, electric, and broadband as it adjoins the Commerce Park, we'll be in a situation of being able to sell that and then have the county direct us to how to use the proceeds of that for future economic development purposes. So when you then you go and you look at our liabilities on the last page, our liabilities are up $370,000, primarily because we drew down $400,000 of additional loan debt from the SBA for our loan fund. And Martha has a very exciting report on the loan fund. When we go to the P&L, we had a very good year, but again, it was because we received the additional $85,000 from the county to run the Columbia Forward program. As you'll recall, $65,000 of the $150 that we received goes to the chamber to support their component of the program. And we also received the $50,000 for the grant, but since we only awarded $14,000 in the grant, we are holding $36,000 in deferred income for grants this year and in the future. So when we go down and look at our total income, $954,000 versus $833,000, we're $120,000 above budget. And if you take the funds that we booked in 2022 from the Columbia Forward program, basically 70% of the net budget variation is a result of the money we received from the county in 2022. On the expense side, our total expenses were $877,000 versus $855,000 budgeted, for a over budget of $21,000. We had 3 open positions this year and ended up spending over $8,000 in marketing and advertising for those positions, from Indeed to LinkedIn to newspaper ads and the like. We also had purchased some computer equipment in the beginning of the year. And if we looked at where we were over budget the most, it was in the office supply, or it was in the general operations, which included the computers, the office supply, and the fact that we had under budgeted the amount of commitments that we had to join organizations like the Chamber, like Patterns for Progress, like the Center for Economic Growth, and the variety of professional organizations that CEDC is a member of. We did make up considerable funds by not filling the staffing positions that we had budgeted for last year. But the good news is that this report shows $77,000 in net income. One of the things that the accountants are going to be making adjustments relating to, and this was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting, is the $88,000 that the county directed the IDA to provide to us for the purchase of the land is going to be considered a grant. So we're going to have an additional $88,000 on top of the 77. They're also going to look at how we booked the Columbia Forward money. And right now they're projecting that we'll have a $207,000 positive net income. This is the end of the 2022 was the end of the 10th year of a state grant using federal money for the Flanders Corporation. And the terms of that $200,000 grant was that as long as they remained in business in Columbia County and retained 150 jobs, that at the end of 10 years, that grant, it was actually a loan, which would be converted to a grant at the end of 10 years. The way it was set up 10 years ago on our books means that we're now forgiving a loan of $200,000 and have to report $200,000 of net forgiveness of indebtedness. So my goal is to be sure that if it's $5,000 or $7,000 of net income, that it's plus, but it's going to be very close. And I think the footnotes will certainly explain the fact that the reason that we had a $200,000 write-off was because we facilitated a $200,000 loan turned into a grant to save 150 jobs in the county for 10 years. So I think if someone said, oh, they didn't make much money or they lost a little, they'll be able to explain that in the footnote. The bigger issue is going to be if the county decides they want the land that we purchased for them, because the proceeds of county land sales that we were holding from previous years was booked as income in the previous years. And the $88,000 will be booked in 2022. But if we give them a $224,000 property for 20 grand next year or in the future, we're going to have the $200,000 loss that we would have reported this year if we hadn't had the income. Again, it's somewhat complicated. I think it's something that we certainly want to be able to be transparent about, and that's why all of this detail, and also that we want to be able to explain to the supervisors and to the public if there's questions about why we had the loss, but we were facilitating the role of acquiring land for the county. And if we sell it for $300,000 because by the time the county decides they don't want it, it's gone up in price, then we'll have the other problem. So you're going to see when the accountants come and present the audit in advance of our March meeting, so that Lisa can file it with the ABO by March 31st. Very different number. It's either going to, it's not going to be the 77,000, and it's not that these reports aren't accurate. It's just that the adjustments for these extraordinary transactions will get aggregated and consolidated in the final report. Are there any questions? Anything the treasurer would like to add? Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. I note that the pages of the financial statements have been numbered, which is a step forward. If we can get you to refer to those page numbers, we'll be able to follow.
It's been so long we hadn't had them that I didn't know they were there. I was also thinking that we should highlight in yellow the lines I'm going to talk about, and then make sure we print them in color. Good.
I think we just went over how we're going to change the way things are put into the budget.
Right. What we did was, particularly in the area of computers and phones and dues and memberships and sponsorships, Kat Leiden and I are working on that today. That's the last area of the budget, so that we have monthly. We're trying to match the budget to when the timing of the expenses are, and historically we divided everything by 1/12, and you really didn't have a sense if you were on budget or not. But because our largest expense is payroll and benefits and employment taxes, it wasn't material, but it does give you a better sense of managing that process. So we will have that completed, so that next week, when we are running the numbers closing out January, that the monthly budget columns will be more accurately timed to the expense. We do have several revenue sources where we can't anticipate exactly when the funding will be received because there are fees related to closing IDA projects, or there are fees related to administrative fees related to Office of Community Renewal grants. And we don't exactly have the perfect ability to time those. So what I've done there is I've put, if it was a $40,000 budgeted item for IDA closings, I staggered them. I put, 2 in June, 1 in September, and 1 in December, so that, we're not every month reporting why we're $10,000 off budget on those things that we can't time. I thought, the meeting went very well, and there was a lot of input.
Thanks, Mike. Committee approved charters.
Our governance and nominating committee chair and our counsel, Andy Howard, and I and Jessica Gabriel are going to sit down. We do have the revised charters, but for today, we need to approve the charters that are currently in place. We had asked Andy to come up with charters that were consistent in form, if not substance, in a way that when you read them, each of them were organized with the same types of headings, and even if the descriptions of the function of the committee was different. We had hoped to have those done by now, but in the absence of having them completed, if we approve the existing charters and later in the first quarter, we'll present the new charters and adopt those, but we do need to have annualized charter approval for the ABO by March 31st.
All right, so the charters are Finance Committee, Executive Committee, Governance and Nominating Committee. These are toward the back of your packet. Home Committee charter. Take a minute and look through those and see if there are any questions, any revisions that you recommend.
I think we're gonna wait, bring them to each committee when we have the revisions. And do that then, it's just better to pass what we have in place.
Okay, all right,
Thanks.
good. Then we
So I make a motion to approve.
approve all of the committee charters as presented here.
Yes.
I'll make a
second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Similarly, the 2022 discharge duties of the committees. That is just a
They're right-
formality we need to.
They're right behind the charters, and they are all have been reviewed and approved by the committee, the respective committees. And again, this is simply the requirement of the ABO that we make a bullet list of the activities and actions that each committee took. And each committee has already approved these, so we ask the board for ratification of those.
Motion to approve the discharge duties.
Motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
There is a procurement policy amendment, Mr. Chairman, based on the increase from $2,500 to $5,000 of my authority to act without board approval. And the policy continues to provide that up to $5,000. Well, that's the new part, discretion of the CEO. 5,000 to 10 documented verbal quotes from 3 vendors, 10,000 to 20 written quotes from 3 vendors, and that obviously for professional services, you don't have to take the lowest bid, and the other provisions here are consistent with what we've had in the past and what the ABO provides in their model procurement policy.
Any questions? Motion to approve the amended
So
procurement
moved.
policy. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Portfolio overview.
Where's Martha?
Right.
Come on up.
Okay, thank you. As you can see, we consolidated this report, but rest assured, I went through the loan portfolio in detail with the loan committee a week ago Monday. As you can see from this report, there are 4 loans in the CEDC loan portfolio that are in arrears. The one in the far right column, $100, that client has been granted a loan deferment. And as soon as we make that adjustment in our software, it will drop off this report. The other 3 we're in touch with. There's one who hasn't responded, but we're working to get a hold of him. And in the SBA loan portfolio, there are 3 loans that are past due. 2 of them are duplicate loans to the same client. You may recall that oftentimes they receive 2 loans, one from the CCC loan portfolio and one from the SBA. And then there's one client in there who is just about 2 months in arrears, and she's working with Brian's wife, one of our technical assistance providers. So we're doing what we can to bring her current, or at least prevent her from getting any further behind. As you can imagine, January is a slow month for most retail businesses, and we have a lot of retail in our portfolio. But I think overall, it's relatively clean. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Martha, while you're there, if you wouldn't mind just taking us on a brief review of the report that each of you, I believe, have in
Yeah,
front
we're
of you.
looking at this one, right, Jim?
Yeah,
Or-
is that there?
or-
Do you have that?
Yeah. So as you can see,
Ken, if you could just hold that up. Yeah, great.
it's an Excel spreadsheet, and that is pretty much self-explanatory, and you can go through those numbers. But Jessica created this really attractive visual for us, which I think is really helpful. Thank you, Jessica. And I'll just go over it briefly. We're looking at an 8-year time frame. So if you look at the total loans, we've made just over $4 million in loans over the past 8 years. The first 4 years, the numbers were not terribly impressive, but the most recent 4 years have all been over $500,000, and we certainly hope that trend will continue. Below that, the donut shows the amount of money we borrowed from the SBA, $1.2 million over the past 8 years. We'll be requesting another loan in the spring, and I'm considering requesting $750,000. At that threshold, we're given 3 years to disperse the funds, so I don't think we'll have any difficulty doing that. On the right-hand side at the very bottom, you can see the interest earned versus our loan write-offs. We've written off $150,000 over the past 8 years. Again, the first 4 years, there were, a fairly significant number of write-offs, and that trend has decreased over the last 4 years. The interest earned has also decreased based on the amount of money we've lent, but that's because we're charging relatively low interest rates, and we started doing that during the pandemic. I think that probably the loan committee will want to consider increasing our interest rates this coming year. We want them to be fair, certainly, but we don't want to undercut the banks. And then you can see the number of technical assistant clients that we have assisted over the past 8 years. We're doing a better job, I think, of tracking that. We certainly always have tracked the number of paid consultants that we use to work with our clients, and we're doing a better job of tracking how much we're doing internally. And 105, that's a big number for 2022. And I think it's more just behind us, and it's working with quite a number of small businesses throughout the county.
I think when you look at this and you look at the fact that we've done $4 million of small business loans, serving 162 loans, and provided over almost 600 touches with individual clients with the technical assistance funding. That I certainly want to congratulate Lauren and everyone that's worked with her along the way. Both existing team members and people, Lauren Prana, who was here. But it's really, when we presented this to the Board of Supervisors at their Economic Development Committee meeting a week ago, yesterday, they were blown away by the fact that, I said to them, we are more than just the local cheerleader to promote business activity and work with the chamber and help developers and not-for-profits get grants. We're going to be working on putting together that report as well. We've brought in, we've assisted, we haven't been solely responsible. We don't create jobs, we create an environment that hopefully sustains businesses and not-for-profits to do that. But if the only thing we've done over the last 8 years was our loan program, this is pretty impressive. And again, I want to thank Martha and everyone here on the team who's been involved, booking the checks that, we get over 1,500 loan payment checks a year. So, we sometimes have to go after people for their check, but it's a clean portfolio and it's very, very impressive. So thank you, Martha.
Quick question. Martha, thank you very much. I have to compliment you. You're always on top of things and seem to be doing a great job. Just curious, is there much of a rejection factor to requests for loans?
No. Well, we really, oftentimes we just don't bring the loan request to the loan committee because it doesn't appear. that
So
we
you
have
do
one.
reject? Yeah.
And oftentimes we're giving them additional technical assistance, but on occasion, we do reject the loan.
This is a great program.
And we were, was it the last quarter of last year, Martha? There's 5 intermediaries in the state, and we'd either done I think we did the most number of loans where Pursuit, which is a statewide entity, they did a higher dollar volume of loans because their loans are bigger. But, there's an organization on the southern tier, there's an organization in the Adirondacks. And, we also, I think, reported previously, we had an excellent review when the SBA came down and did their field audit. And we're really excited, those of you who haven't met Steve Vandenberg, who joined us to work with Martha on the loan program. He's here today. And we are very excited that we're taking your advice, Mayor. We're looking at doing some marketing. And we also will feature this at the annual meeting.
Does the portfolio review need to be approved?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Motion? Seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. I think I need to back up a little bit. Did I neglect Lisa to approve the treasurer's report? I think we did.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report, please?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Treasurer's report is approved. Now let's get fully loaded.
Thank you again, Jim. Fully loaded performance is an existing established business in Claremont. The loan request is for $50,000. It is purposes to refinance higher interest debt, primarily credit card debt, and to make some facility improvements. It's again $50,000 split between the 2 loan funds. It's a 72-month note. The total payment is $105 per month. We will have a lien on business assets and a second mortgage on the personal real estate. That's just how the loan fits.
Loan committee recommended approval, correct?
Correct.
Any questions about the loan application? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Hey, Martha, you and Steve had worked on a report that pipeline report, and it was what, approximately $450,000 of loans in the pipeline between the 2 loan funds. So we're, what we looked at was right now the active loans are $1,784,000, and we have approximately $3 million to lend. But what we have developed is a model that allows us to determine how much what is our target to lend in any 1 year, so that if we loaned the whole million, we'd be out of business next year because the money doesn't come back in as fast as we put it out. And so by determining whether we can get 400 or 750 from the SBA, will help us report to you on how that, what our target volume of lending is in any particular year.
Mike, President's report?
Yes, I'm going to start with a staff update. Obviously, since the fourth quarter, we've added a number of people. Riley Warner, who's here helping us this morning on AV. She is helping us with administrative tasks as well as marketing and branding. We also have had Steve Vandenberg join us. I think you may have met Steve at the last meeting where he introduced himself. And since then, Chris Brown has joined us as our housing coordinator. And Chris, if I could just introduce you a moment, give us the elevator speech and tell us about all you've done in the last 2 weeks. And
Oh, geez. Should I get on camera?
sure, come on, I'll just.
Okay. Really only has been 2 weeks, hasn't it? So I think I'm on day 11 technically. Okay, so.
He came back the second day like Steve did.
I was very excited to listen to it. At least we should. We're very much in an organizational building piece right now. So we had our initial kickoff meeting last Wednesday. It was pretty well attended. We had, I think, just about 100 viewers between the Google Teams invite and the YouTube link. And Senator Michelle Hinchey stayed on for the entire meeting, which I was really impressed by. But it was a good meeting. We basically just kind of went around the members of the task force. So there were 12 task force members and then 10 advisory board members. So the task force members all introduced themselves to each other, to me, to the viewers, and just talk about the things that they're interested in and excited about for the housing task force activities. I scheduled a bunch of meetings with all of the task force and advisory members. There are 22 of them, so it's kind of slow going. But I think I've got 6 locked down so far. And the next large meeting, we don't want to have meetings every single month with 22 people. The next large meeting tentatively will be in March, but prior to that, we're forming an organizational committee, which is comprised of both task force and advisory committee members, and specifically those members who have run departments or organizations previously. So they'll be in charge of basically developing what kind of committees we'll want to have, what our goals are going to be, what our objectives are going to be, and then we'll bring that to the first full meeting in March, and we'll talk about that. But it's been, I think there's been a pretty significant amount of progress already. I do have a meeting with Chair Morrell on Thursday, just to kind of firm up the path that we're on, is the vision that he had for the task force. If anybody has any questions about my CV, my bio is on the website. Yeah.
Thank you,
Riley. But previously, just before I got here, I spent a year with the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, which is the Regional Planning Association or Regional Planning Administrator for Berkshire County, just across the border. And there's 28 towns and 2 cities. And I was the housing consultant for the Regional Planning Administration to each of those towns and cities. So many of the issues that are current in Columbia also exist in Berkshire County. And some of the solutions that have been tossed, I've actually already worked on with the Berkshire. So there are definitely some things that we can bring over here.
Thank you. The task force that the Board of Supervisors set up, Chairman Morrell appointed Canaan Town Supervisor Brenda Adams, who formerly ran Habitat, as a co-chair, along with Stuyvesant Town Supervisor Ron Knott, who's the vice chair of the Board of Supervisors. And I think we were all very, very pleased with the first meeting, and Chris did a great job, and we're happy to have his expertise here. Are there any questions on housing? If not, next on my list is the Columbia Forward program. Jessica Gabriel, who joined us last June, has been heading that up, and she's also prepared a report in your packet and can give a little update on where we are with Columbia Forward.
Good morning, everyone. So as you know, Mike mentioned, there's a 2022 progress report of the Columbia Forward initiative in your packet. This is a county-wide initiative to provide business support and financial assistance to small businesses. The purpose of this report is to provide the status of the program outlining key achievements made since inception, which is in July 2022. So in the first 6 months of the 3-year program, CEDC, in partnership with the Columbia County Chamber of Commerce, we held 2 big trainings for small business workshops, which so far went really well. We did try to have, we did have scheduled I think 1 or 2 extras, but ended up getting canceled. Whether one was because it was right after the summer, so we were a little too aggressive there. I think it was early September, so we didn't get the turnout we needed to cancel that one, but we're looking to reschedule that one. We supported 13 state and federal grant applications. We provided 8 small business low interest loans and grants. We also supported 14 entrepreneurs with technical assistance and connected with 16 supervisors, committees, and business associations to discuss the town and the community's priorities. What you'll see here is also we supported through the Columbia Forward program $231,000 in loans and grants. Just to clarify, as Martha talked about sort of the loan portfolio as a whole, this Columbia Forward loan and grant program is a subset. So it's sort of they've already incorporated under hers and sort of pulled out as ones that are specifically targeted toward the small business through this program. You know, with 2,000 businesses in Columbia County and more than 90% of them having 25 or fewer employees, you know, our goal is to be able to get out through those local economic development committees to touch as many as we can. On the opposite side of this sheet is a plan for our 2023 activities. You know, consistent with the program's guiding principles under each of the 3 goals, we list here sort of objectives that we want to achieve in really specific activities. Take a look, there's really what we've started to do and what has been really receptive from the local development committees or local economic development committees for this idea of business roundtable and sort of meetups. They're looking for somebody to help them facilitate sort of getting the businesses in their communities to be able to connect. So Germantown, I've mentioned this, I think at a previous meeting, they're really excited to have the first roundtable scheduled for March 2nd. That is what we hope to use as sort of a template going forward, where we hope to in 2023 hold 4 roundtables across the county. And then also working with the Chamber 5 networking events that are specific to Columbia Forward. Under goal 2, we look to continue to provide loans and grants to the small businesses that qualify under this program. And also hold 8 business workshops. I mentioned that we've held 2 so far of the small business, call it big trainings for small business, sort of our tagline for that program. So we're looking to hold 8 more in 2023. I think when we created these metrics for 2023, maybe a little bit aggressive on that date, considering that the Columbia County Chamber of Commerce is going through some staffing changes. So that one, I'm a little nervous now all of a sudden that we might not be just with that exactly, but we'll push there. Under goal 3, one of the big things in response to what I think what we've been hearing is to develop these economic development strategic plans for the local committees and the local business assistants, building a template that they can use and helping them to put those together. So we've been working on those to really start getting them drafted, and so we can begin pushing those out. And then again, the inventory. What we're really pulling is creating this database of the businesses in each of the communities. So that's what we've done in 6 months, and then what we hope to do in the next 12. Any questions?
Been a great partnership with the Chamber, and Jessica's brought a great amount of background and experience in helping us move it forward. One of the things we've talked about internally, Martha, Jessica, Chris, and I, is the fact that the Board of Supervisors doesn't look at this as 3 silos. They look at what is CEDC doing for us. And you know, we have 3 contracts for services with them. we don't receive a blanket appropriation. It's their contract for specific services. So what we're working to do here is to be sure that there's synergy between what our loan program and technical assistance program provides with Columbia Forward and the chamber partnership and the housing. And when you add workforce activities to that, they really blend well, because helping the individual communities come up with economic development plans and metrics will strengthen the small businesses in the community. The workforce piece will help them identify and train employees. The loan program can help them grow and expand their business with the technical assistance added. And then the housing piece, so that when you look at the median household income, not individual median income, but household income of $68,000 a year, and $38,000 in the city of Hudson. We're really attempting to strengthen the 1,700 businesses that have 10 or less employees, so that there is sustainability, and without infrastructure, housing is a challenge. Bringing in large companies is a challenge. We're 38 months running as the lowest unemployment in the state, and one of the larger gaps between, I always get these confused, the size of the workforce versus those in the workforce in the state. And we think some of that is because of retired state workers who have retired at 55. They're counted in the workforce till 65. And so they are not interested in, they've retired and they're not looking to work. So, I think that economic development is about rising all boats. And when you look at the largesse and some of the wealth and in the county, and you compare it to what working people are experiencing and what opportunities there are for small businesses that are struggling, I really see that we're working to advance that entire band of economic activity, because without the workforce, no business can be successful. Housing, Chris gave a great report. Broadband, we work very closely with Don Meltz at the County Planning Office and Patrice Perry, the Director of Planning, along with Connect All, which is the New York State broadband program, to file FCC challenges. You may have seen that the FCC had a website where you could go online and look up whether you had broadband or what service they thought you had, and challenge it. Based on the definitions that we've been working under, which is served, unserved, or underserved at 100 MPBS, we have 1,100 unserved addresses. The FCC challenge only allowed us to challenge 72 addresses. And that's because they include Starlink and other satellite options as fixed broadband. And so one of the things that we're continuing to work on with the state is to be sure that the federal funding that comes down is used for fixed broadband, not where we have the satellite option. We also worked with the Public Service Commission. I think we reported back in the summer that we had worked with them to compare our list and their list. We both had 1,200 plus or minus addresses, but we had a 73% discrepancy. We're now back where we're within a reasonable range of error. We continue to work with the towns of Ghent, Austerlitz, New Lebanon, and Canaan with respect to the work that's being done in Austerlitz and Ghent using their ARPA money, and Canaan and New Lebanon using Representative Delgado's congressionally directed funding. And we're seeing some great progress in bringing those 350 addresses down. So if you take our 1,100 and you knock 350 off, Consolidated had asked for a special permission from the PSC for something related to their business, and they had to do 90 addresses in Chatham. So now we have 450 off the 1,100. Obviously, the issue is going to be if you're a mile and a half down the road on the last mile from where the closest connection is, you may have some difficulties. Or if you have a mile driveway, you may have to pay to bring the connection to your house. So the final thing is we're working with the county and the 4 providers. GTEL has been sold. I think there's some regulatory approval left, but Archtop is involved. They want to, they have $300 million in private equity. They're going to headquarter in Kingston at the old IBM facility. And they're going to, they want to, from GTEL, they're going to be able to, they're going to have to come from Kingston to Saugerties to Catskill, to Hudson, to Troy. But now buying GTEL right in the middle of that footprint with existing service, they feel they're able to jumpstart their business. The question is, will they be able, will they go in and build competitive backbone in areas that have only one provider? And then will they create, where every week you get a mailer switch from Spectrum to BIOS or whatever. So we've been having conversations with them, but we're also trying to be balanced in our relationship with all providers equal, because each of them have a footprint, each of them are in a service area that we need to have a working relationship. So that's yes, the only other thing I wanted to do is ask Jessica to just update us on the strategic plan, and then ask Dr. Drummer to, the only thing left on the strategic plan is the workforce pillar. So if you just give us a brief overview so that we can talk about some of the workforce activities that we've been involved with.
No problem. So again, in your packet, you have another copy of a document that outlines what the existing strategic plan goals and strategies are, and then what's proposed for 2023. The orange highlighted ones are where there's proposed edits based on conversation over the last 6 months or so that this board has had. What we added were some timeframes as well as some metrics that we could institute to be able to track progress. And so, as mentioned at the last meeting, the workforce and education, we were holding off on coming up with some ideas for what was proposed for 2023 and going forward. Just waiting on the meeting that was held January 17th, I think. Well, thank you, January 12th. So just a couple of weeks ago, which was a really great meeting, good conversation. I'm sure that's what Carlin's going to report out. So I won't steal your thunder. Let you jump in on that.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm reporting on behalf of Ruth, who couldn't join us this morning. I'm going to tee this up, but I really want to hear from the people who were there about your thoughts, because that's really important. I'm coming at this with a different lens, shall we say. But we had three key speakers from the college who participated in this discussion. The first was Professor Matthew Kenny, he's technically in our biological sciences department, but he's also the co-chair of our Achieving the Dream initiative. And one of the legs of Achieving the Dream is that we are assessing what our business community needs. And Matthew, during the summer and during the fall, visited 34 businesses in both Columbia and Greene counties. He wanted to he had 4 objectives when he started visiting these businesses. One was to assess what are the technology skills required of employees, in our 2 counties. The second one was to find out what the county's
the businesses in our counties know about the services and the classes that Columbia Green provides, which was really enlightening because most of the businesses didn't know the difference between accredited and non-accredited program. At least they know we exist, but that's about it. Also wanted to find out from the businesses, how the college could help them with respect to recruiting new employees. And lastly, we wanted to find out from businesses, where are the equity gaps? And from that conversation, Matthew, did a presentation on those 4 objectives. And then we heard from Amanda Karch, who was our Director of Community Engagement, better known as Continuing Education. And then we heard from Chris Nardone, who was our Director of Workforce New York. And he is also serving on the Affordable Task Force team, which is great, for affordable housing. So we had 3 different perspectives, coming together from what we had gleaned. And, there were some interesting takeaways. For me, one of the biggest is that none of the 34 businesses whom Matthew visited pay a living wage. And the Department of Labor defines that as $22 an hour. I think the closest that we came to it was about $20 an hour at Walmart. And that Walmart number is based on, there was some criteria for that. But so that was kind of, aligned with the affordable housing challenge, really puts us in kind of an interesting position. So I would love to hear from Sean and Mike and Jessica, Martha, what your takeaways were.
Start with the board members.
Well, it was certainly an interesting, session and some great presentations, and I learned, a lot about what the college is doing, these programs involved. I mean, I think there was also a lot of commentary back and forth across the audience. I can't remember the gentleman's name from Green County, but
Tony DeSantis
had some very strong opinions he expressed, about, whether or not these ventures are really dealing with the culture of, people almost, resistant to joining the workforce and, those issues. And then I think it was Chris who was really putting out to us, what do you do when the educational processes and the workforce development programs bring people up out of jobs that still need to be filled down in the low and entry level jobs, and that he found that was a real issue that has to be dealt with. Like, you can't just, especially with with our low unemployment rate and the lack of people, already, if you're moving them up and out of those jobs, you end up creating even more of a problem sometimes. And so, I guess I learned something. I don't know if I have any concrete things to offer except to just recommit ourselves and as an employer to try to do better with living wage and, to provide more opportunities.
I think one of the other things that we heard from all of the businesses is that the biggest need is for training in soft skills, believe it or not.
Yes.
That was really at the top of the list.
Or just basic customer service.
Basic customer service,
yeah.
and don't wear flip-flops to the office.
Especially at a manufacturing plant.
Yeah, exactly. So does anybody else want to?
What I was most impressed about was the fact that they went out and did it. I mean, we all sit around and talk about this stuff. They took time out of their schedules and on their own. And some of the stories where they just showed up, I just thought that was phenomenal because it's the only way to get done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think one of the most exciting developments that came out of this is we now have a partnership with Family of Woodstock, and we are offering training through our non-credit side of the house to people who would like to open a daycare business in their home. And that probably wouldn't have happened without some of the connections that were made, during these visits, because childcare kept coming up. And so then, of course, it all comes together. Now the question is, how do we proceed? We know there are employment gaps, but there are employers who can only hire maybe 2 people. And we cannot start a program to serve 2 people. I mean, that's just not the way the world is anymore, much as I would like to do that. So we're trying to look at writ large. We know that healthcare is a major, we have a major gap there. CMH certainly is crying out for employees. I know Brian can speak to this much more clearly than I, but we are at long last, I think, going to be, we're trying to get an LPN program off the ground. and working with Dr. Urschel at the hospital, with her background in this and trying to make that happen. So I'm, cautiously optimistic we can move forward with that. We need to grow our medical assisting program. We need to grow our phlebotomy program, all of that. We also have a really exciting new partnership that will start in the fall of 2023 for our students who earn their general education requirements at the college, but who want a physical therapist assistant certificate. They are now able to go to Berkshire Community College, just very close to where we are, about 20 minutes away. So that's going to roll out starting in the fall. And I think that's going to be another addition to the hospital and have PTAs.
And I think that as this ties into, the CEDC workforce, we have been, certainly there's a lot of follow-up out of the information we all learned at the program that was presented. But we have been working with Dr. Drummer and her team on strategy for grants, both with SUNY and with the Office of Workforce that the governor's office set up. And yesterday we had a call with Family of Woodstock. And Martha, would you like to just give a brief overview on some of the things we talked about as technical assistance and loans for people who graduate from that program?
Yes, currently, they are taught how to run and operate, a successful daycare, but they're not really given the business skills. And so we're thinking that if those graduates can come to us after they've gotten that training and maybe have 1, 2, or 3 sessions on operating a business, using some of the instructors that we've used in our micro business seminar series, that would really be beneficial. And then, of course, in addition to technical assistance, we can offer our small business loans. So we're hoping to get something off the ground.
And the team from Family of Woodstock, there were 3 people on the call. They were telling us that they think it's for the in-house or the home daycare, it's about $6,000 they would need to get their business up and running. And, we gave you a $15,000 5-year, 3.5% loan. It's $275 a month payment. Not that we'd encourage people to take more than they need. She said that one of the problems is that the home daycare people don't often get insurance. And the other thing is it's about $13 an hour. We calculated on the call. If, unless 2 of the kids are yours.
$13 per child.
No, $13 an hour is all the daycare providers making.
Provider. That's really
Because
low.
it's $180 a week seems to be the standard, and some people can't afford that, right? Because that's $7,000 or $8,000 a year. So the model of home daycare is really based on I get to be home with my child and I make what I would take home from a $20 an hour job.
Yeah.
And I help other families who need the help. There are a couple of, I guess you have one in the program now who would like to run a 16 child center. And we are talking with former supervisor in Nabosny who's involved in the Hudson daycare that's closed because their building is in needs repair. And we did talk to the Family of Woodstock people about engaging one of our commercial realtors to see if we can find some space, because there is one for sale. Where was that? Felicia. But I think they wanted $260,000. The husband and wife who ran it for years are moving to Florida. But that's the.
I think the price dropped. I saw something on Facebook.
Yeah.
The community board. I think they're in the 175 or 160 now.
But if we looked at that and we helped them get a bank loan and we gave them the working capital startup, we're trying to. I think what we all felt was by going through this, we can learn more about that business and determine what our underwriting would be to and help them learn a little bit as well. And we've been looking to take some of our loan funds and announcing, CEDC announces a $200,000 loan fund for daycare or energy or, right, so that, and then if you don't use it, next year you move it into the other bucket. But it does raise some of the marketing aspect of this. But it is a really serious issue. And Jessica, you were familiar with the one
Yeah, I think what our role is, especially kind of working with staff, and really is helping sort of make connections between, oh, we've got people that are coming out of this class and we hear about a daycare that's potentially looking to sell. It's how can we make those connections and make that work so that there's not a decrease in service in the community. Right, our goal is to increase that. So again, a lot of our role is making those connections and helping facilitate, expansion of the.
And the reality of the home daycare situation is in most instances, the provider is not in a position to either borrow money or invest equity.
I was wondering if that, I was just reading about Dr. Spindler's Blue Hawks Academy program, and I know that Carolyn, our Director of Education, has been involved with her, and they're going to be coming to Alana, but there is a kind of, getting familiar with job opportunities and sort of career directions that's part of it too, but it seems like a positive direct thing. Yeah, that's good.
I want to touch back on that meeting we had at the college. I think Matthew's final question was he was at odds. Do I serve the business owners or do I serve the employees? And that was the big question. So the business owners were like, yeah, don't train people because then it creates this vacuum. But I think we all agree that the working base needs more help than the businesses need. But I told them there's a little bit of both, but it didn't have to be an all or nothing approach.
That's great. I got a lot out of that last question, and I was thinking at it from, okay, what is CEDC's strategic what's our role in this? And we think about CEDC's mission to support business and grow within the county. And sort of getting back to that question is, who do you assist and how do we drive what we do? Do we support the employee or are we supporting the business? And I think that sort of helps us when you kind of have to think about what role do we play. It helps us in being able to fill out what's the task we need to be involved in to really further our mission.
So Jessica, what do we need to do with the board at our next meeting to finalize the pillar so we can have the strategic plan ready for the annual meeting at the end of April?
I would love to sit down with Ruth and Carly and Michael and Sean, you both participated as well. Have sort of just a really a debrief on that and think about it from CEDC's perspective of what is it that we want to get involved in.
And how can we best
then
help?
we can come up with some very specific ideas, if that works.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
That would be great. That would be really, really great. I think one of the things that the college would be, really grateful for is, the membership here. If you hear about an activity or somebody, to let us know. For example, I've been trying to get into what used to be GlaxoSmithKline since I walked in the door in 2019, and I've never been able to get through the door. One of our trustees, through somebody, with the way these things go, we had a meeting last week with Helion. They didn't even know we existed. And we're sitting right there, serving Greene County. And so the woman who was based in South Carolina, who was meeting with us, she was rapidly taking notes, and she said, you've got to come up, you've got to take a tour of our facility. And I said, most importantly, you need to let us know what you need with respect to workforce. So, that's the kind of support, that we need, because as you said, Mike, it was great that Matthew Kenny went out and started this work, but none of us has that kind of time.
No.
So he was able to do it because he's a faculty member, and he came to me in late spring and said, I've been teaching for all these years, and he said, I want to do something different with my life right now. And he said, I would love to have some release time from my faculty assignment in order to do this. And I said, absolutely, it's terrific. And that's the way it happened. But otherwise, I can't be
There's
out.
4,000 businesses. You
Yeah,
can't go
exactly.
knocking on
Can't
every.
do it. Just can't do it. So.
And as you point out, 2,800 of those businesses in the two counties are looking for one or two people with specialized skills. But if you could create perhaps like the old arts and science curriculum to bring in the soft skills,
Yeah.
That might be helpful.
That'd be great.
Well, if anyone else would like to participate in that conversation, just want to email me, let me know, and I'll set that up. I'll also email everyone. I realize this is really small. So I'll email this out to everyone, but I think for the next full board meeting, we'll look to kind of really outline and talk through. Let's get this wrapped up and sort of vote on what you want the strategic plan to be.
Good. Thank you. Finally, our annual meeting is on Tuesday, April 25th. We did put a save the date in the January e-news. We'll do it again in February, and we'll actually send you all a calendar notice for it. We'll be at Kozel's. Lisa called and spoke with them, and she got back to me and said, Kozel's is booked, meaning she got it booked for us. I'm like, oh my God, where are we gonna have breakfast? But we had a good laugh about that, and but mission accomplished. We're thinking about a speaker. One thought at either our nominating committee or executive committee was John Williams from the Federal Reserve. I am in discussions with his senior communications person who I met when he spoke at the college. You know, it's a real it's a real maybe, because we might have to move to a Monday or Friday if we truly want him, and B, you know, he just did an event here. We'll see how it goes, but if you have ideas on others, Dr. Drummer has been our speaker for 2 years and during COVID. Hugh Johnson has been our speaker for 4 or 5 years. You know, I don't know that any economist can give us any definitive guidance in this economy, but you know, he's always a draw. But you know, if you have anyone that you think would be a good speaker, because I'm thinking it's 50-50 or less chance that John Williams will be able to accommodate us on our time schedule with his demands of being the Fed chairman, or Fed president, even though he has a home here in Columbia County. We're going to use the heartstrings.
If we have any members of the public here, we're happy to entertain questions, comments, criticisms, or complaints at this time. Apparently there are none.
One housekeeping update that Chris talked about his bio. I have to look at my bio on the website, and it is so out of date. So all of you would look, and the new members are not on the website yet. So if you could forward a small bio, short bio to Lisa, I guess, and we'll get that started.
Riley can work on those for us, and send them to Lisa, and then we'll get them to Riley. As you know, Riley has a marketing and communications degree from the University of Albany, and she's been looking for more and more. She did a draft marketing plan for us, and we're excited about having her get more engaged in these things. So thank you.
Thanks.
I want to thank all the board members for your continued involvement and engagement. Staff, you're doing a great job, and please keep it up. Thank you to our technical team, Mike and Riley, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.